I'm Yuffie, and today I'm making a Minecraft toolset inspired by the spawner block. And of course, by today I do mean like 2.5 months ago, because I recorded this, time lapse, and I go into DaVinci. I don't really make recordings. I think the last time I posted recording on here is, well, I could have looked up to see, but it's been years. It's been years, and they're still on the YouTube channel if you ever want to look at my Pokemon fusions from when I was still in school. But yeah, I pop it in, I hit time-lapse, or I hit the button to, like, speed up the whole film, and I hit render, and it just didn't work. And I tried a few times. I spent, like, I think an hour the first time I tried doing it, and then I just gave up. I've got, like, I'll admit I've got the motivation of a snail and a salt mine, and just any little setback does tend to make me give up pretty easily, something I want to work on. But I tried that, and I started trying. I would try like once every couple days, and it still would not render. Again, I'm thinking it's because the way I made the video is technically rendering like 2 videos here, on the bottom right of the screen here. You can see I've got a big old preview. Normally in Sprite, which is the program I use for spriting, that preview is actually really small, but I wanted to make it bigger for people who wanted to like see a kind of bigger picture view of it where the screen isn't constantly moving because of time-lapse mode. I think time-lapse mode, looking at that, can kind of be a little nauseating with how fast everything moves around. So I tried setting up the little preview thing, but it did mean that I had like 2 copies of the video being rendered at the same time, both at like 1,000 times speed. Not actually. I think I spent an hour on this one. This specific piece of art came up pretty quickly, which was nice, but also bad because I think it's more entertaining when I have more renditions. But I'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, I tried that a few times, and then finally, like I think a week or 2 ago, I was still thinking about wanting to make this video, and I popped open DaVinci Resolve, which is what I use, and I had the project already there. It was all ready. I deleted my last failed attempt to render it. That just kind of paused halfway through for no reason again, and I just hit render, and it I think 10-20 minutes, and it was already done, no issues. And I was like, well, I don't know what went differently there, but it worked, and I am happy. All right, so I've got past the rendering bit. I've got the whole thing ready, and I'm ready to talk about it. So why did I actually want to make this video? I feel when I make, Pixelart, one of my favorite things to do when I'm done is to kind of stop and just look at all the bits and pieces tossed aside as I was working on it, and I really like when I take a picture to send my friends of it. I take the big old screenshot of that. I always include all these little bits and pieces that you're seeing here on like the bottom right of the screen. You can see where I've been kind of tossing these little pickaxe renditions as I make my pickaxes, my art in general. As I make my art, I like to keep every idea until I fully decide to discard it. So like on an idea where I really struggle to find it, I will often have just a list. You might see, like, if I'm making a tool set, like 5 or 6 different pickaxes that all look subtly different, with each one getting more and more different along the line. And sometimes, I'll use the latest one, because the latest ones often be the ones that's been the most refined. But sometimes I'll even ditch that like latest idea and jump back an idea. Again, here I mentioned this one came a little almost too easy, which makes it a little less fun to look at the end, because there's just not as many different attempts. I think it's really fun seeing all the different attempts. However, I mean, I still think there's value in having this. For one thing, I'm making this whole set for a friend who's got their own little personal mod they're making that I hope they do post at some point for the world to see, because it's a pretty fun mod. But what they've got in it is they've got something called Haunted Steel, which is when you break a spawner, it drops these spawner shards. You've seen similar ideas in other mods, but this one's different in that, like, this is kind of a tool material. And so the Haunted Steel can be made into pretty much any of the other tools, though I know she actually added in her own tool that you're not going to see here, a cleaver. But let's not talk too much about that. All those ideas, I think, are going to be hers to share. But regardless, my art end of it to give to her is these pickaxes. Before I start on these little pieces of art, I often like to pace. I pace whenever I'm thinking. I've probably walked miles pacing a week. But the idea I kind of had for this, is I like the idea that the spawners you find in the world are these, like, you know, they're ancient. They've not been touched in years and years and years, who knows how long. And the player can't just melt down a metal and recast it. This is an ancient metal that you just don't understand. But what you can do is you can just shoddy it up. You can chop it up into little pieces and take these strips of metal that have been woven together to create these cages, and you can weave them yourself into your tools. Because they can still be like deformed even if they can't be melted down and recast. And so maybe these strips are also super sharp, and that's why you want to use them as a tool. But what you've done is you've kind of bent these into shape, creating these like very woven, geometric looking tool sets here. I often, whenever I can get away with it, I try to make my shapes more geometric than natural, just because pixel art at this scale is a lot easier to do when you're working in straight lines. That's what pixel art does best. It's all built from squares with very straight lines. But yeah, so I have this. You can see these almost little thorns coming off the tool as well, just because when you look at the spawner itself, you can kind of see what I picture as like a kind of the thorns and barbed wire going around. And I wanted to keep that. I thought that looked really interesting. A final thing you'll also see is I like to have a unifying piece on each tool when I make a tool set. You know, beyond just the color and the constant and all that, I like to have like a single unifying piece of some kind. And for that, on the, you know, kind of the head of the pickaxe and the hilts of the sword here, you can see this little purpley thing that looks like it's been derived from the eye, the face on the center of the spawner. And that is what I think of as like the soul cage, or whatever it is that the spawners have in their center that allows them to create copies of monsters. I don't know if soul's the right term when I think about the whatever lore there might be. I don't go super crazy deep with the lore thinking about it. In fact, I don't even need all the lore to be consistent between my two tools. I just want something to like inspire me. When I get that idea that inspires me, I just like to run with it that way. You can see at this point I've kind of settled on this weird weavy handle that I like a lot, and I'll be copying and pasting that among all the tools here. At this point, I've practically done here. We just got the hoe and the shovel last. Though you can see I've a little bit of I mentioned how I sometimes jump between ideas here. Sometimes a different tool might give me ideas for a new tool, and so I've jumped back to kind of mess the axe here, see if I can improve it. I've got a few more ideas here, but none of them really ended up sticking, so I just moved back onto the hoe. With the hose, so the pickaxe and the sword are usually the easiest tools for me to make. The axe is kind of neutral, still though usually on the easier end. Scythes, and especially shovels, I just have so much trouble getting good ideas for. I just slipped up there to reveal my cheat sheet for hose, but yeah, for the hose, I almost always just make them scythes, because I don't know, I feel like it's a very interesting shape. It's a very iconic shape. Everyone likes a good scythe, so it's just an easy cop out to make it a scythe instead of a hoe. As for the shovel, I hate making the shovels, actually. I kind of hate it because they all come out looking like some kind of magical staff. They never look like a shovel. They always look like some kind of cool magic staff, and it's cool, but it's just hard making sure they actually look like a shovel. But, you know, I did like how this one turned out. And with the shovel done, I'm done. This was a little bit of a messy video. The way I did it is I would record myself talking for like a minute or two, say what I could think of saying in a moment, and then end that recording, pop it in the video, see where I'm at in the video, see like, oh, hey, look at that bit of me talking finished right as the pickaxe was finished up, or I'd already been in the sword or whatever. So what I was saying wasn't always directly connected to what I was looking at on the screen, just because, yeah, it was a little chopped together. I know some people like to write a script for these kinds of things, and I feel like with time-lapse today, people kind of just talk, you know? So hopefully it wasn't too messy. I know I talked way too fast at portions of this. There are parts of this where I listened to myself speak, and I was like, oh my god, why? But hopefully it'll get better with time. This is almost a purposely messy video, because I was worried that if I tried to make it too clean, if I kept trying to make different renditions of it over and over again, I might just give up. So I wanted to just get something out there, something fun to just have exist for my friends who are going to watch this. But again, thank you, and I hope you tune in for whatever I make next, whenever that will be. Bye-bye.